My name is Santa Ono. I'm honored to be named the 15th president of the University of Michigan. Go Wolverines, go blue.
Hello there, everybody. Hope you're having a great Friday. There he is, Santa Ono. That's what he sounds like. And hey, just on that little 10-second soundbite, doesn't sound too bad for starters. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. This is the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian. We are live here weekdays talking about the latest in Michigan sports, and it's great to have the first appearance ever on Michigan football and basketball today. One of the staff members of the Maize and Blue Review, Davis Moseley, who joins us, and a tip of the cap to Davis. What's going on?
Absolutely. You got to tip the cap. I'm digging the Mickey shirt. I wish I had one. I'm just stuck with this basic Army green, but I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me, and let's have a good show, man. Well,
I was typing up your name on the screen just to put up like this, and then I noticed that I was just thinking that Michigan has a Davis Warren.
That's right.
Quarterback, and Michigan is hot after another quarterback in Jaden Davis, a quarterback for next year. So Davis is kind of the name, right? Right now it's hot.
Absolutely. It absolutely is hot. Unfortunately, most people, they mix up my name. They think my name's David. And I get that, but hey, every time I ever introduce myself, they're like, "Your name's David?" No. Like Davis Warren, like Jaden Davis. That's it.
There you go. Are you somebody, everybody likes football. You like basketball too. It's a good combination, to work for the Maize and Blue Review. You like both football and basketball, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually felt when I became a Michigan fan, I'm down here in Atlanta, Georgia. So pretty rare to see a Michigan fan, but Denard Robinson was kind of like the guy that got me into it. And so football was actually my first love for Michigan. And then obviously as it kept going, I went into basketball, and now I'm proud to be writing for both of them.
I think that there's a lot of people. This is all right that you're like the masses. There were a lot of people that saw Shoelace and that kind of drew them into Michigan. I mean, there's a quality about him where he just drew you in from the first play. I think that the first snap that he ever took against Western Michigan, where he took it for a touchdoation. After that, everybody was like all about Shoelace.
No question, he's polarizing.
Doesn't wear any shoelaces, and that kept going, which always seemed weird to me. I mean, it's a cool nickname, and it'd have been cool, like if he did that running around the yard. But he did that in college for I don't know if he, in pros, if he ever did, put the shoelace.
I think they ended up taping it. I think they taped it down, but he didn't tie him, so got to keep his nickname.
I always thought that was a little weird. Yeah, you got to keep the brand going. Anything for the brand, isn't that what they say? Well, today we've got some football questions for you, one and basketball, and we'll talk a little recruiting. We've got I asked Davis to come up with what he thinks is the biggest question surrounding Michigan football here on this July the 15th. We may all just be, thinking about the same thing. And then the same thing for basketball. I don't know. Like, you go I think football, we might be thinking the same thing. Basketball, I'm not sure. And then when we talk recruiting, well, there's a lot of different ways that we can go, and you revealing that you're down there in Atlanta. We know that in the future, Michigan has a point guard already committed from there. So I'm sure you're going to be familiar with Christian Anderson. So we'll be talking about him coming up in a few minutes. But let's start with football. What do you think, Davis?
Sure. That sounds good with me. We can get right back into it. I'm sure we are thinking the same thing, just like everyone else, as you said.
Yeah, well, for me, that's the quarterbacks and the quarterback snaps. What about for you? What's the biggest question about Michigan football that you're thinking about right now?
Like you said, it's right there with the quarterbacks. I don't think you can talk about Michigan football without bringing up the quarterback battle. It's among the biggest in the country. Many national writers are speaking about the depth and the magnitude of the battle, and hopefully we can break it down and get some people on our sides.
Well, let's see what side you're on. I was just reading today in Maize and Blue Review. Trevor McHugh was putting the numbers together, putting some numbers out there, and he was talking, and he had some charts up there about where Cade McNamara liked to throw the ball and, you know, put the numbers out there. But they also pointed out that McCarthy had a higher per attempt pass quarterback rating, and also was better in the run game. And then, you know, he put the touchdown, the interceptions up there, and McNamara, before he got into that Ohio State game, you know, didn't turn it over a whole lot. And he did against Ohio State, threw a pick. He threw a pick against Iowa, and then he threw 2 against Georgia. So I don't know if that says something about the quality of the opponent or McNamara taking more risk. He certainly wasn't taking a risk that was early in the Ohio State game, you know, against Georgia. Maybe you had to throw a little bit more caution to the wind, but you know, JJ had a couple fumbles in there, and he had a couple picks and just a lot more limited action, 5 interceptions. Are there anything that the numbers last year do for you that you think about and you think that the staff thinks about as they get ready for the quarterback battle in the fall between these two?
Yeah, so I like to look at, like you said, the last 3 games, particularly because they were against top 10 opponents. I think Iowa might have been ranked 11 or something like that, but against some of the better competition, three of our bigger games that year, right there in a row, it to me, the numbers show that JJ had statistically outperformed Cade. Now that's with a lot less reps, but the numbers, like Trevor McHugh's story say, JJ's yard per attempt, yard per completion is miles ahead of what Cade's were over those last 3 games, and I've got some of those stats to break down, but yeah, I think that numbers definitely help the story. I think they don't tell quite everything, but I think that there's something that you definitely need to look at.
I think when it comes down to the fans, Michigan fans, if we could poll all of them, I think that J.J. McCarthy would be more of the fan favorite. Like, who would you want to take the most snaps for Michigan? I think McCarthy would win that. I think there's 2 reasons for that. One is that he came in more highly rated. And that's easy for everybody. Like, hey, you know, this guy's great. 2 is that in the limited amount of time that we have seen him, right from the first game is the one that he ran all the way over the right, threw the ball, and ended up going, you know, for that touchdown for 69 yards. I mean, that was amazing. Mahomes, you know, he's had a few like that. And he can really run. And then he had one pass in the Orange Bowl when he came in. He threw it right in the middle of the field. There were like 3 guys converging. I don't remember who the wide receiver was, but he's
Eric All.
Yeah, he zipped it right in there, like right in the heart. And you're like, you know, that's an NFL throw. That's a first round pick throw. I mean, all those kind of things. So I do think the fans. I do think the fans think it's McCarthy. I was just thinking about this today. You know, Jim Harbaugh. I didn't play quarterback in high school, but even when, you know, we were playing pickup out in the street, you know, 90% of the time I was playing receiver. And then there's Jim Harbaugh, who, you know, played quarterback everywhere. You know, he's the coach in there, and yet I do feel this is the weird part. Like I'll have to admit that I think Harbaugh knows more than me about these guys and the quarterback position, but man, it feels like I could make the call as well or better than Jim Harbaugh. And that's a weird thing to think about.
I think that's been almost a storyline over his whole time. I think everybody's questioned his ability to pick the right quarterback. You know, there was a point in time where I remember most people were questioning whether John O'Korn should have started over Wilton Spate. And now the next year we saw that maybe that wasn't quite the move. I think O'Korn wasn't the fan favorite, but you know, we saw the same thing with Dylan McCaffrey and Joe Milton over Shea Patterson. And then of course, Cade McNamara took over for Joe Milton, and now we're talking about JJ taking over for Cade.
And those are great points. OJ saying it wasn't one of those JJ picks a Hail Mary that was a bomb that Cade couldn't throw. And I think he's exactly right about that. You know, like I remember Brandon Peters, there were a lot of people like, you don't want to start this kid as a freshman on the road. And I'm like, I do. I'll start him on the road. And I wanted to start McCaffrey against Michigan State in that monsoon, and they started O'Korn, and people were like, you're crazy. You don't start 150-pound, you know, wet behind the ear QB. And you know, we got to give it to, you know, Harbaugh there. That same year, was the year that Nick Saban decided to go with Tua in the championship game over Jalen Hurts. And then the next season, that's when Dabo Swinney put Trevor Lawrence in when he had a senior quarterback. So all that stuff that was unheard of, it was right there on the brink of happening. And that's where it gets me to when it comes down to McNamara and McCarthy. Like a lot of things when you think about history, and it's really tough to unseat a guy, especially one that had the success that McNamara did, brought Michigan their first Big Ten championship in almost 20 years. Like, what are we even talking about? But, making that decision, it reminds me the most of something that actually Harbaugh was involved in, and a guy that we've already talked about in Patrick Mahomes. Because Alex Smith, the first time Alex Smith was with San Francisco, a very successful quarterback, but Harbaugh was there, and he had Kaepernick, who they had drafted, sitting on the bench, and it ended up, Alex Smith ended up getting hurt. I think he had a concussion, and then they put they put Kaepernick in, and Smith was ready to go, but he never was able to get back in there. Of course, San Francisco went all the way to the Super Bowl, with Kaepernick, so it worked out. And then when Alex Smith went to Kansas City, they had gone to the playoffs, but they drafted Mahomes, and then they traded him to Washington. I think they were still the Redskins back then, and then Mahomes took over. So those situations, and with Harbaugh being in there, it makes me at least think about this. I'm not saying that McCarthy is Mahomes or Kaepernick. I'm saying he's JJ McCarthy. I'm saying he's very talented, and that the time where you think about if it was 5 years ago, I think you could almost guarantee that it would be McNamara unless an injury. But times have changed. They
have, and like you said, I liken it to the scenario where you had Alabama with Jalen Hurts. Yes, he had a lot of success, took him to national championship, but they put in the higher productive at that point in time, Tua, and threw him out there, and they ended up winning the national championship with it. So, I think it's a very similar situation. We saw Cade win, 11, 12 games, whatever it was last year, and JJ sat there and was playing. He had meaningful snaps plenty of times. But now there's a chance he may get more snaps than Cade this next year, despite the success the team had last year.
Here's Otis saying JJ hits receivers in stride. Timing is everything Cade didn't have last year. I don't know. There's a little bit of a stretch to that. I mean, JJ's got a great arm, and and this is what happens. Like you end up seeming like you're knocking one guy when you're, JJ wasn't perfect on all of his throws. No. And Cade, there were some fantastic throws. I think the Andrell Anthony throw that ended up going 93 yards, but he zipped that one in there. McNamara throws that seam 20 yards. I mean, that, and he got better, I think, throwing some passes down the sideline pretty good. He threw one, I remember, to Roman Wilson against Penn State, I think right at the end of the first quarter. That was a real seed right in there. And yeah, McCarthy's got a wow factor, but that does happen a little bit. I see on Clubhouse, Dirt McGirt. I don't know if that's his real name or not, but Dirt is saying that he wants Van Buren out of Maryland in the 24 class, not Jaden Davis. And he's pretty highly rated, so that is a name, at least that's on the radar. So that's not that could happen. Dirt, and Michigan's got some connections to him as well. Meanwhile, Paul wants us to talk about some fantasy football. Don't worry, Paul, that can happen. And Dirt likes Davis too. Davis, you like Davis? Davis
I like all the Davises.
Davis Moseley or Jaden Davis? You have to declare.
Actually, I like Davis Love the third. I'm a golf guy.
I am too.
I was named after Davis Love the third.
Were you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, he was a tremendous golfer. I don't know if he ever won a major, but maybe he did win a major.
I would imagine so. I imagine he at least won one.
Did Davis Love I'm going to say he won one too.
I agree. I'm gonna say I'm with you on that.
We'll have to check on that. All right, where are we at? Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I could, I'll dive into the last three games of Cade versus JJ. I kind of like what Otis had said the first question he had about one of the interceptions that JJ threw, or the only interception he threw over the last three games, was a 70-yard Hail Mary against Iowa. And for the sake of actual statistics, I'm going to take that out for this because Cade couldn't throw the ball 70 yards. So they had to put him in there. And even Pro Football Focus deemed it an unturnover worthy play. So for the sake of this argument, I'm not going to count that, which of course is biased, and I get that. But over the last 3 games, J.J. McCarthy's yards per attempt was 29th overall across the entire country. And his yards per completion was number 1, not number 10 or 15, number 1 overall against all Power 5 quarterbacks. I went through and took a deep dive, and that was how it rounded out. And Cade over the last 3 games was in the 90s for yards per attempt and 80s for yards per completion. And I think that's a pretty staggering number. And a lot of that has to do with the amount thrown. But at the end of the day, JJ gives you a more explosive passing tree route. And the numbers show JJ went 9 of 20 for 168 yards, 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions for a 91.25 quarterback rating. And over the same time period, Cade went 40 for 62 for 434 yards, 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions for a 63.5 quarterback rating. Now, numbers are skewed, and I'm biased. I know I am. I pull for JJ. I'd like to see him be the quarterback. But at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. They can be biased and skewed, but they don't lie. And I think to see that your backup quarterback having a plus 30 on the quarterback rating is staggering in itself.
All right. Having said all of that, I don't want you to answer this. I'm going to go, and Otis is the answer to the question. So I'm going to, having said everything that you just said and presented, I want you, I'll go first. I want you to tell me how you believe it is going to play out. You know, you just talked about J.J. McCarthy this, J.J. McCarthy that. You got all the numbers. And Otis says he thinks it will work out. He is assuming that J.J. is going to make a second-year jump, that Cade will not, thus ending the competition. Now, true enough that I think because of McCarthy just being a year in the program that he has more room to make a bigger jump. But, you know, Cade still can, having a year under his belt, progress. So, you know, maybe it's like this for McCarthy. Maybe it's like this for McNamara. But having said that, before you give your answer, I do believe that McNamara will hold off J.J. McCarthy in the fall, and come September the 3rd, what are we, 50 days away? That it
I believe something like that.
It will be Cade McNamara that will lead Michigan in their first game against Colorado State. However, I do believe by the time Michigan goes to Iowa, if they can get a true competition out there on the field, I think that J.J. McCarthy could overtake McNamara, and I think that's going to be a tough decision. And for this, right now, I'm going to say that McCarthy starts at Iowa. McNamara starts against Colorado State, but by that time October rolls around, the calendar turns, J.J. McCarthy will start at Iowa. How do you see it playing?
Man. Well, I agree with you. I think that Cade McNamara will walk out September 3rd against Colorado State, I believe it is,
correct,
as the starting quarterback. You know, and I'm not going to say, unfortunately, the guy won 11 or 12 games last year. And, yeah, that's impressive. But I'm going to go with Cade starting. But I do believe that JJ will either take over or gain more meaningful snaps as the season progresses. And by the time we reach Columbus, I would be shocked if McCarthy isn't the starting quarterback.
Shocked. KC saying if JJ overtakes Cade mid-season, that means there's a problem. Not necessarily. Was there a problem with Clemson? It was. There was actually a problem with Hurts and why Tua was able to start against the second half. They needed more passing. Look, I think it's like Alex Smith when he was with the 49ers, not getting hurt, but I don't think the first pass that Cade McNamara throws, that's a bad one, or certainly like an interception, or he throws a pick six, that's going to be like, Harbaugh over there, yank him. But I do think that if he stutters just a little bit, I mean, he's got him breathing down his neck, talking about McCarthy, it could happen. And I think in those first 4 games at some point, it is going to happen. He might, just talking about McNamara, have a second half like he did against Rutgers. And, 2 series, 1 series, you can have a bad series, but I don't think he can afford to have 2 poor series. And I think that's when they could make the move to McCarthy, and then he'll be off. It's a good problem to have overall. It could also blow up in their face and all of that, but there it is. Let's get some more of the feedback here, Davis, before we move on to some basketball.
Absolutely.
Yakov is asking us what we think about Kirk Herbstreit calling 14 Thursday night games on Amazon for a measly $12 million. And that's Herbstreit calling NFL games. I'll give you the first crack at that if you want it. I mean, I'm prepared with an opinion, but I want you to go first if you're ready.
I look at that number and see 8 digits for 14 games. I don't know. I would take it. I'm totally cool with it. I love people making as much money as they want, especially if they're good at what they do. And I think Kirk is. Might be an unpopular opinion amongst Michigan fans, but I think Kirk is good at what he does. I'm not a big NFL guy. I don't study it. I don't know how many people tune in. I would imagine a lot, especially on a Thursday night game. But good for him. That's my opinion on it. That's all I've got for that.
Yeah, I think Kirk does a really good job as a college football analyst in the prime spots on Saturday with Chris Fowler. It's a very tough job but when you're a former Ohio State quarterback, especially for Michigan fans, to be like, yeah, you like Kirk Herbstreit. I think with only 2 occasions, one goes back when Michigan was trying to hire Les Miles. He let that scarlet and gray kind of come to the surface a little bit, and he sabotaged Michigan's coaching search. That was on him. And then the last time, he deserved the criticism, and what was it? It was during the pandemic where he's like, Michigan's chickening out and waving the white flag a little bit. And then he had to come back, and I think he was crying. Like, I don't know if he was crying. It seemed maybe he was.
I think he was. I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he had some tears in his eyes.
Well, those 2 parts, can I look past those 2 episodes where, he let this scarlet and gray show and then say, I think he does a good job in college football. Now, stay in college, college, pro, flipping back and forth. I would rather have him just stay in college. But, Tony Romo does a good job. And look at how much money Tom frickin' Brady is going to get next year. He's going to get like 5 times that. And we don't know. Tom Brady could be a boring stick in the mud. Although I just watched him do I don't know if it was a 30 for 30 or an E60 where he was sitting down. He brought Charles Woodson in, and they were watching the talk. And Brady showed some pretty good personality there. I don't think they just called up Tom and said, hey, here's $136 million. They probably, brought him in or talked to him and said, hey, okay, he does have some personality. All right, let's zip through some more of these. Here's Jeremy, who says, outside of Cade being the QB on the team, who won the Big Ten? What did he show us last year or in the spring that shows that he has the talent to unlock this offense? Well, he did it. I mean, there's one thing, he did do it. He was there, and he did take care of the ball. And Michigan did not have a lot of negative plays behind the line of scrimmage. I think they were number 1 in the country for that. And, yeah, that has a little bit to do with the running game. But also, he did not, he was smart with the ball, took care of it, didn't take a lot of sacks, didn't throw a lot of interceptions. And, he wasn't asked to do a lot in a lot of games, but then he needed to throw the little ball against Nebraska when he really had to make a play, even though they ran it 6 times. Then he threw that crossing route to all. I mean, that was it's huge. He did make the plays. I'm not going to take it away from him that, Michigan was a predominantly run first team, but there's a lot of weapons out there that have emerged. They're going to throw the ball a lot more this year. So look, you're preaching to the choir a little bit. Like, we both think that ultimately McCarthy's going to be the guy. Hey, Moses, what's going on? He wants some basketball talk. We're going to get to it straight away. We want to make sure we get everybody at least having an opportunity. OJ's saying that Cade's going to get booed. I don't know about that. How often?
Maybe if he throws a couple interceptions, he'll get booed, but I don't know.
How often does Michigan get 5-star QBs, and how long do people think he's going to stick around? So what are we talking about? McCarthy?
I guess so.
Yeah, because he would be the guy. Although I don't think Rivals technically had him as a 5-star, but maybe he moved up there. I was just looking today at Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. He fell to the 3rd round. His guaranteed money, the Ridder, who was taken early in the 3rd round by Atlanta, was just over $1 million. McCarthy's already making more than that right now. If McCarthy wins the job, plus the way Michigan's been talking about, oh, we're hooking up people that are here and people that do things on the field, McCarthy's going to get like, I'll just guess, $10 million if he wins the job to come back and play for his junior year. How much is he going to get then to come back for a senior year? Now, maybe if he's going to be the 1st overall pick, well, that means that he's playing great too. But I think there's the chance with McCarthy and or McNamara. I don't really like how Michigan's playing their name, image, and likeness cards, but it could be an advantage when it comes down to keeping McCarthy.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think he's personally, I don't think he's a guy that flees if he doesn't win the job. And he's been vocal. He's said that many times. He loves Michigan. Now, obviously, things can change, and we don't know what goes on in his mind. But, he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would flee at the first sign of trouble, or else he would have last offseason.
Well, I really think it depends how this season and playing time and how all that goes. I don't think at this time next year that both of the guys will be on the roster, but, that's just a guess. Recruiting, Maize and Blue Review, there's a lot of things going on with recruiting. I think the biggest thing right now is that the barbecue is coming up in 2 weeks. And Jaden Davis, the theme of this show today, Davis Moseley, our staff writer, his first appearance. Davis Warren, as we sit around talking about quarterbacks, although we haven't mentioned him in the mix. But yeah, Jaden Davis is expected to be at that barbecue. And will Michigan play their cards differently with Jaden Davis than they did with Dante Moore? That's up for a little bit of interpretation and a guess. Well, we'll be here all hour if we don't turn the page and talk a little basketball, and let's do that. You see my answer on the board. Michigan basketball, biggest question. I am going to the point guard position, Davis. Jalen Llewellyn comes in as a transfer from Princeton. Michigan also will have a true freshman coming in from Virginia, a 5-star in Doug D-U-G McDaniel. Neither of these guys have played a game that counts with the rest of the roster. That's a pretty big deal. That's the biggest question I have as we sit here in the middle of July with the Michigan basketball team.
Gotcha. I like that, and I think that's probably the smart choice there. I went a little different direction. Obviously, we'll dive into the point guard talk before we get into my question, but I like your question there.
Okay. The people cleaning up, throwing some questions up still about football. We're making the transition from the football field to the hardwood, gridiron to the hardwood. Yeah. So your biggest question is what?
My biggest question is who's going to start at the 2, 3, and 4 for Michigan?
2, 3, and 4. Okay. All right. Well, point guard, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be Llewellyn. I mean, he's a grad transfer. And the question to me, if I went a little deeper on that, is just how much McDaniel is, how much time he's going to get. Like, I've seen true freshmen. I remember Xavier Simpson when he was at Michigan. He was out there as a freshman, true freshman. And he looked scared. I'm like, this guy's not a player. But then I had to remind myself, like, look, true freshman point guards, it could take a while. Xavier Simpson was a really good player. It was all said and done. But as a true freshman, there can be an adjustment period. So do you think, tell me right now, if you had to make a guess on who would start at the 2, 3, and 4, who would it be?
If I had to guess,
yes,
I would go with Bufkin, Jet, Terrence Williams. That's where I would go with it. I love Yusuf Hyatt. I think he's a real nice player. I think he's going to play 20-something minutes for us, and I could see him starting as well. But all indications have shown that Kobe Bufkin has made the jump everyone was expecting. He's gotten better on defense. He's gained 20 to 25 pounds. I've heard he's pushing almost 200 pounds now. And I love his game. And Jet, coming in as a borderline top 35, top 40 player. And Terrence Williams was one of the pieces last year that everyone seemed to want to get more minutes. Certainly over Brandon Johns, they wanted and called for those minutes. But my guess would be Bufkin, Howard, Williams.
Not bad. I think that a couple games in, you're probably going to be right. And I don't know, hopefully for Michigan, they got a lot of competition. Maybe it could be Yo-Yo, as you mentioned, coming in. I'll bet you, though, here today, Davis, that instead of Jet, you're going to get Jason there. Coaches like to put the guys that have already been there, and especially with this brother situation. Sure. I'm going to see, and I'm going to say Jace. I almost want to say Isaiah Barnes, who redshirted, but I'm going to go. Jace seems like a
sneaky pick.
Yeah, hard-working guy, and just over his brother as well. Then I'm going to just go with Jace over Jet.
Austin Davis started over Hunter Dickinson for 5 games, and I'm not going to say – they said Austin Davis beat him out, and I'm not going to necessarily believe that. I think it had more to do with senior leadership and giving him the chance, as well as what they did with Brandon Johns over Moussa Diabate. And I don't think that your line of thinking is totally out of question there. I think there's a lot of depth, and that was one of the things we were worried about at the 2, 3, 4. I think there was a lot of concern going into the offseason, but I think Michigan addressed those concerns pretty well, bringing in grad transfer Joey Baker from Duke, obviously bringing in Yo-Yo from, I guess, Limoges in France. We love Yo-Yo.
I love saying Yo-Yo. It's a fun thing to say.
It is a great thing. And I think the nickname, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I think he's going to get the crowd pumping up there in Chrysler. But I think there's a lot more depth than people at first thought. We've got Kobe, Jet, Isaiah Barnes is coming off a redshirt year. Like I said, Joey, Terrence, and Yo-Yo. And then you factor in power forwards like Will Cheddar, as well as even Terrace Reed can slide down to the 4 at times.
You get me a little bit excited about basketball, and that's a longer way off than football. OJ saying Coach Howard did a good job short notice with the unexpected departures. Do you think Jet is a one and done, or out of loyalty, does he remain at Michigan for his father? What do you think?
So during the All-American camps, specifically the Jordan Brand Classic, a lot of people said Jet Howard was the most NBA-ready prospect there, which featured the likes of top 5 players, Dariq Whitehead, Derek Lively. Both these guys are at Duke. Nick Smith Jr., I believe he was a little hindered with a wrist injury. But we were talking about some of the top 10 players in the country being at these camps. And NBA pros like J.R. Smith and others were calling Jet the most NBA-ready prospect there. I believe CBS Sports mocked him at 10 in the way too early NBA draft. I believe they've got him at 10 going to the San Antonio Spurs. That seemed maybe a little high, considering he was a top 40. I think he ended up 38 or something in the rankings, which I think he's got a lot of potential, especially with his positional size being 6'7" with a couple extra inches on his wingspan. I love his game, and I could see him going as a one and done. I like him as a 2 and done, going in the lottery as a 2 and done.
Well, the one thing we've talked a lot about name, image, and likeness for football. We have not done it much with basketball, but in football, it appears that Michigan's approach is one of you come on in, and we're not going to make guarantees where you get the money up front. But in a couple of years, we're going to definitely, if you prove it out on the field or on the court, you're going to get a lot of money. And
that compensation. If
you're able to, do it in the classroom as well, you're going to reap the rewards. So I look at it's just like Hunter Dickinson. I thought Hunter Dickinson was going to be gone after his freshman year. I would have bet on that. I thought he was gone last year. But meanwhile, the amount of money he's making and the way Michigan is approaching this NLI, I wouldn't be surprised if Hunter Dickinson comes back. They give him $4 or $5 million. Now, Jet, one thing that we know about Jet is he does not need the money. And if he needs money, he just go to his dad. And the other thing is, so if you're not in desperate need or even in need at all of money, every college player or every pro player that I've ever seen quoted when they talk about their college days and leaving early, they all say the same thing. Man, I wish I would have stayed around. Boy, that extra year. Well, now they get compensated, and there's no people I say, well, you never know a guy's situation. You know, and I get that. You know, if you really need money, go. But Jet doesn't need it. So I think Jet could be a 3-year guy. I know sure. the time, the thing's ticking, but it's also the landscape is changing. And with Michigan, one thing we know for sure in football, I wanted them to push the envelope a little bit with name, image, and likeness and find a way to promise some guaranteed money. Or I don't think they're going to get 5-star quarterbacks and things like that. I don't think they're going to get 5-star players in basketball. But the guys that you have, you can keep them and you can pay them. You can pay them big time.
Sure. I like NIL for college students. I think it's a great thing. I think it gives power to them. I actually had a speech in my college class that I had to talk about NIL, and I really like it for the players. I think it gives them a lot of power, and gives it directly to them.
I like it. Your class is in session right now with our guest Davis Moseley, Mason Blue Review staff writer. We go to your wheelhouse.
Sure.
Which is recruiting. This is somewhat topical when you look at the top of the 2023 Rivals 150, because G.G. Jackson today, did you see the news that he decommitted from North Carolina?
I did. I absolutely did. There's been rumblings of him heading to South Carolina in order to enroll early. There was actually rumors that he might do the same at North Carolina until they took Pete Nance out of the transfer portal and locked up all their scholarships. And, of course, I don't blame him for getting 1 year earlier to the NBA. And South Carolina seemed like his best option.
Me neither. And they'll probably pay him pretty well right there in his own backyard. I would. And the thing about paying the players, as mentioned before, NLI, if you start out with Rivals, I don't think that Michigan, I know they got 2 5-stars last year in Caleb Houston and Moussa Diabate, but I don't think they're going to be in play or any of these 5-stars, at least this year. And if you go through, there's 20 of them currently ranked on Rivals, which leaves 4 stars. Are there any players, as I start going through the list here, I don't know, do you agree with me with Michigan's not going to be involved with any 5-stars?
I think you missed a really big one. I think you missed a really, really big one that we're definitely in play for. If you scroll back all the way up to the top 5, I'll show you.
Wow, scrolling all the way back up to the top 5. I love it. All right, let's
right there. Number 5, Isaiah Collier, 6'4" point guard out of Wheeler High School in Marietta, Georgia. Michigan is absolutely in play here for Isaiah Collier. I actually spoke with the family last night, and they have confirmed that they will be taking an official visit to Michigan by the end of July. So we will definitely have Isaiah Collier on campus. He goes by the nickname The Wizard. And he will be on campus before the end of July for his official visit. And I think he's absolutely considering the University of Michigan.
I would love to know Michigan's game plan and what Juwan Howard is going to emphasize to him when it comes down to name, image, and likeness when they talk to the Wizard. Because I cut you off. Go ahead.
I've been pretty good in conversation with the family. I spoke with his mother and father for 25, 30 minutes about 3 weeks ago. They were adamant, very adamant, that NIL is not a factor in his recruitment. They are absolutely set that the NIL factor does not matter. They are absolutely emphasizing academics as well as potential playing time. That's important. They want to be able to have their son play right away, and I get that. And he's a potential NBA draft pick, one day. And they're focused on getting him a place where he can play, where he can trust the coaching staff. And from all things I've heard, he's a pretty quiet and laid back guy. He likes to see what the coaches are really bringing him. He's not the kind of guy that's just going to make a commitment out of nowhere. In his own mind, maybe it'll come out of nowhere to the public because he's a quiet kid, but he's the kind of guy that's looking for a real experience, and the family is set saying that they're looking for something that we've heard before that's transformational, not transactional.
Wow.
They don't think NIL is something that's here to stay. They think it's very fluid. It's not set in stone, and they're preaching it to their son that it should not be a factor in his recruitment.
Davis, he sounds like a Michigan man already. Jim Harbaugh's out there like, that's not a boy, transformational. Let's go.
Well,
so you got
he's a good kid.
That's good to hear. Doug McDaniel this year, the possibility of a top 5 guy in Isaiah the Wizard Collier, and then in 24 to be Christian Anderson from your neck of the woods, a pipeline from
Absolutely.
From the Peach State up here to Michigan. Who else is so there's probably everybody wants a top 5 player in the country, but
Sure.
Who else is in on him?
So he's got a top 5. He's already taken 4 of his official visits. So Michigan will be his last one. He's taken official visits to Cincinnati, who's been the long deemed favorite for Collier. Alabama has gotten an official visit, and then he took a visit to both West Coast schools in UCLA and USC, who have just recently joined the Big Ten. He really liked both of those visits, and if I had to guess, I would say the top 3 is UCLA, USC, and Michigan in no particular order.
Well, let me go ahead and put them in a particular order. Michigan, UCLA, USC. That's pretty random for me. Awesome. Well, is there anybody else then, as we look at this 3 list that I have? I don't know if it goes up to 150 or just to 100.
It does.
Oh, look at that. Where else can I go?
You actually already missed one again.
Wow.
Number 23. We're actually talking about Isaiah Collier's AAU teammate. We're talking about 6'4" shooting guard, combo guard, Marvell Allen from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's attending Montverde Academy now, but last year he was playing for Calvary Christian.
And this is a 6'4" shooting guard. You like
Yes.
that? And he has just missed. Like I mentioned, there's just 20 ranked 5-stars. So this guy just on the outside of being a 5-star. He might be able to move up. And it looks like before, because he's got some down arrows there. That's what that means. Before he was in the top 20, so he's just moved down.
He was. Yeah, so he is on a little slide. I'm not sold on a big slide here. I think he's definitely a top 50 prospect in my eyes. And like I said, he's teammates on the AAU circuit with Isaiah Collier. They're good buddies, and there was even talks that they could potentially both be visiting Michigan at the same point in time, which in my opinion, would be huge as they would be able to see the campus together. And I believe that's the only school that they're both focused on, which would be really cool to see them transition from the AAU circuit for the skills factory to Michigan.
I love it. So look at me. This is a very informational, educational, I guess I should say, with a lot of
That's
information segment. I'm looking at Dirt on Clubhouse, who has dubbed our top 5 player the Wizard of Chrysler. That does have a nice ring to it. I have to mention McGirt, that it does have a nice ring. All right, so we'll keep an eye on Allen as well. Is there one more player that we can talk about here in 23 before we talk about Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I could, I'll do a combo because they kind of go hand in hand together, if that's okay. I
like package deals.
Okay, so they are both teammates in high school. They both play for South Kent in Connecticut. We're talking about Elmarco Jackson and Papa Kante. So Elmarco Jackson is the nephew of Marlon Jackson, former Michigan football All-American, and Papa Kante is a 4-star center who's very defensive minded. Got a lot of upside to him. I believe they're both right now. I believe they're 3 stars, and I believe Elmarco is rated number 144, and from what I've heard, the expectation is for him to move into the top 50 in the next update. He's wow,
that's a huge jump.
He's a major riser from people that cover him on a daily, even weekly basis. He is somebody that is supposed to jump quite high, and Papa Kante is more of the same. There's been a point in time where a lot of people didn't quite see what he had, but on the circuit, he's been very dominant, especially defensively. And I believe even some other outlets have put him all the way up into the top 40, which I think is a pretty good estimate. I like him as a top 60 to 70 player, and El Marco, I think he's a top 60 player as well.
I love it. Awesome.
There's El Marco right there at 144 and
144. Okay.
Yep.
Let's take a look at it.
So
I like looking at that thumbnail if I can. Oh, there he is. El Marco. Point guard.
He's a very athletic player.
Let's be honest, Davis. You can't be wrong if your name's El Marco or Papa. I mean,
not at all.
I'm in.
No, I like El Marco a lot. He's an athletic guard with the ability to play a little off ball. I personally like him on ball. I think he's an elite, got elite size for a guard. He's probably 6'2" and a half, and he's thick. He's probably pushing 190, 195. He has a little Jalen Brunson to his game. I'm not saying that's a comparison. There's some aspects. He dissects the defense really well, and he's extremely physical. He's going to put a guard in the post, and there's nothing you can do about it, and he's explosive. There's some highlights out on him, dunking on everybody. It's very impressive. And Papa, while he may not be necessarily refined offensively, he's improving in that area, becoming a better shot maker. He's a real good defensive player. Outstanding, as a matter of fact, one of the better defensive centers in high school basketball.
Well, and there's no doubt when you take a look at Michigan and Juwan Howard, just take a look at this year's class. Terrace Reed, Greg Glenn. I mean, these guys are frontline players. That sounds like Papa.
That's right. Matter of fact, one thing I missed about Marvell Allen was he was high school teammates with Greg Glenn. Both played for Calvary Christian last year, and they're good buds. They hang out offside, out of the court, and they're good buds. And obviously there's connections. Marvell Allen, I really like where Michigan's at for Marvell Allen.
It reminds me of old, Marv Elber. Yes. End up getting him. Let's shift. It's a ways away, 2024, but Michigan already does have a commitment, and this is what we call burying the lead in broadcasting, because the first thing I was going to ask you about was Christian Anderson out of Atlanta, Georgia, right? And
that's right.
24, I'm going to guess point guard, but the first thing that jumps out is that he's 5'8". What can you tell us about him?
So speaking with the family, I've spoken with them. Currently, he's overseas playing for the German U16 national team. And the immediate concern among national analysts is his size. They have him anywhere between 5'8", 5'9". But that's not quite as important as most would seem. To me, the thing that jumps off the page is his ability to shoot the basketball. I'm not sure if there's a better shooter in high school basketball than Christian Anderson. He takes pride shooting the ball, and we've seen him hit numerous jumpers in a row, including on the circuit. I believe he shot almost maybe 60% from three over the course of a couple of weekends for Team CP3.
I heard CP3 point guard, nice club to play with. I've also heard that young Mr. Anderson's daddy's pretty tall, though, so there might be a chance that he sprouts up, right?
Yeah, Christian Anderson Sr. He played overseas. He's about 6'6", and built really well. He's got there's the man right there. All right. But his dad's probably somewhere between 6'5", 6'6", and built real well. And hopefully Christian Anderson can get that. And if he does, there's no doubt in my mind that this is a 5-star prospect.
A 5-star, like if you predicted that he, shot up, 3 inches, we're talking about him, getting up towards 6 feet. And Chris Paul.
He was
Chris Paul.
Yeah, if he was 6 foot, 6'1", he would be one of the superstars across the nation. He still is, but they'd be talking about him in the conversation for a potential 5-star.
Why is there such a down arrow next to him? 31 spots. That seems like a significant drop.
Well, he transitioned from playing from Team CP3 on the circuit and playing really well, averaging 16, 17 points per game, to playing overseas with the German national team. And a lot of people haven't been able to see that. And obviously, as the cycle gets closer, we see a lot of bigger guards. Right there in Atlanta, Georgia, Kyle Green Jr. is another guard, and he's brand new to the rankings, but he's 6'2". And people are valuing the height over the skills and things that Christian Anderson has, the intangibles.
All right. Well, you don't jump in, like, you feel pretty good, even though it's so long. It's such a long ways away. But if you're going to commit to a school that young, you almost feel like that is better than 2 years is better than a year because you're that much into it.
Sure. They're a big Michigan family. They love what Jawan and Sadie Washington have done in Christian Anderson's recruitment. There's definitely a little bit of sour grapes with how Christian Anderson has been treated on the national circuit. Considering his size, nobody talks about him. And that's not fair because he's really playing well. When he played, he was averaging 16.5 points, shooting close to 60% from 3. And no one's talking about him because he's 5'9". And that's not right. And so I understand why there would be some hurt feelings on that end. And Jawan and Sadie Washington came down to visit him in person and showed him that they don't care, that they respect him as a player, and they were willing to offer him at such a young age and such a not an immature body, but he's small. He is. He's 5'9", and they were willing to take the chance no matter what. And the family says that they're going to take the chance on Michigan.
Well, this has gone well, the basketball recruiting portion here with Davis Moseley. Now, is there anything else that you think people that are watching right now have kept you 45 minutes longer than I was projecting to, which I've always said, well, hey, if it's going really well, we could go past a half hour. And
yeah, sure.
Is there anybody else that you're thinking about, or any stone that I have left unturned?
Yeah, one guy I really like in the 24 class is another 5-star big man out of Cameroon. Born in Belgium, moved to Cameroon, and now he transitioned to America a year and a half ago, playing in the D.C. area for Collier, Maryland's West Nottingham Academy. Name's Yavis Messi. Might have butchered the name just a little bit. That's okay. Real nice player, real nice kid. 6'11", 210 pounds, runs the floor incredibly well, super long arms. Wingspan is incredible. And he's been offered by quite a few programs, and some of the ones prioritizing him are Michigan, UCLA, Kansas, Georgetown, and DePaul. He's looking to visit all those programs, including Michigan, and he'll be one to keep an eye on going forward. He's in the 24 class as well.
Well, Michigan's going to have to clear up a scholarship somewhere or two. I mean, that's maybe the biggest thing to keep an eye on if you're a Michigan fan, right? Because the way NIL, and they really do want to keep Hunter Dickinson around, they might not have many scholarships to be handing out.
Sure.
But Llewellyn, I mean, that would be one, right? So
and Joey Baker as well.
Okay, there you go.
You got that. So that's 2. My estimation is Hunter leaves after this year.
I can see that.
And so that's potentially 3, along with there's always a potential for transfers. And with how loaded the wing position is, it wouldn't surprise me to see some players up and leave due to lack of playing time. And Yo-Yo, he's got a chance to go pro. I love it, and Jet does as well. So I think there's definitely some room for some scholarships to open up in the next couple of years.
Yo-Yo a pro, huh? Wow, that would be something. Hey, look, if Yo-Yo and Jet end up going pro, that means they just had lights out seasons. And hey,
it means Michigan had a good year.
That's you and I are thinking the same thing. Well, here's a little tip from Otis for you, Davis. Our last thing here. He says his grandson is a rising 8th grader. So look out. He's 5'8", but he's playing AAU this weekend. So keep an eye on him. Otis, gotcha. Hopefully he's earmarked for Michigan. You know, hopefully he's transformational, not transactional.
Not transactional.
You know, like a lot of these guys that we've been talking about today. All right. Great job, Davis. And
thank you.
We'll have to do this again. We appreciate your
time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Please. I'll be definitely excited to get back on. I've appreciated, you giving me the time to come up and speak.
It was fun. We'll talk with you
again.
again.
Absolutely.
Have
For
a great
sure.
weekend.
You as